welcome to another episode of Video Game Logic. Today's episode was recorded on January the 7th, 2020. I'm your host, Gaming Psychologist, and with me, as always, the original opulent.
The Caffeine Rage? You broke up like a madman in that, so I'm assuming this is when I'm supposed to jump in.
You are correct, sir. On today's episode, we will, of course, be discussing the games which we have played over the last few weeks. We're going to be talking about the December Game Club, My Time at Portia. We're going to reveal our next Game Club game for January. We'll have a quick community corner, and if there's time, a Steam Discovery queue. Timestamps will be in the show notes following their respective topics. Hello, Rage.
Hello. It's kind of funny. We've been sitting here talking for a while, and the connection's been fine. But as soon as we go into like show mode, you started skipping like a 7-year-old in the playground.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that works. That's an interesting metaphor, but it works. I almost said 2019. But no, this is the first show which we have recorded in 2020.
Yes, it's the current year.
Yay, current year argument. How are you?
It's the current decade.
That is true. It is also a new decade.
Well, depends on if you accept year zero or not. Because technically, no. Technically, yes. It's that weird gray area that, most people don't give a damn about, and they're just going to go with whatever media is going to say. And let's be honest, it's a good way to drive traffic whenever you say, it's a new decade. We're going to cover all the games of the last 10 years. But, it's always a new decade, depending on how you count it.
I suppose, being technically correct there.
And it is the best form of correct.
Only the very best. Did you have a good Christmas and New Year, sir? Since we were actually close to those times.
Yeah, it was a pretty good Christmas and New Year's for me. Kind of relaxing. Didn't do a lot, so by design.
Same. Especially New Year. Since we wound up not going to visit the in-laws for various reasons, I spent that whole week, which was last week, at home, doing pretty much nothing. It was wonderful.
And how's this different than usual?
Well, usually I have to do things, like go to work and do a lot more, like housework. But it was like, I'm on vacation, and my kid's here, I'll make him do everything that I possibly can. Play video games. Played a lot of one specific video game.
Yeah, which do you wish to talk about it? Yep.
We can.
Because that's too good
that's
too good a segue.
That's true. I'll have to flip-flop them on the games list, but that's fine. I did play 4 games since, or during the interim, but I've only played 2 enough to really talk about them. So the first one that I've played is Divinity Original Sin 2. And I have played this game for nearly 80 hours in the past week and a half after I got it. I got it on the Steam sale, winter sale for like $25 or something like that. And boy, is this a good game. Oh my god, it's so good. So you and I played through the first one over the course of like 18 months or something like that. And we had a really good time with it, but we had problems with it. AI pathing issues and some of the weird oddities and glitches, things like that. This one fixes all of that as far as I can tell. There could be something related to multiplayer that obviously I haven't been able to test because I've been playing through it single player. But this game really feels like, from a gameplay perspective, a huge refinement over the first one. It feels like they're like, okay, people had complaints about all this stuff, so let's fix it. AI pathing being the first example. If you're just wandering around, when you're in combat, if you click somewhere, they're going to take the most direct path to get to that, even if it goes through hazardous stuff. You can sort of queue up movement orders at the expense of maybe a little additional AP on your turn. So you can't avoid that stuff, but otherwise it's just like, fastest path, even if it goes through, fire or poison or whatever. But when you're running around the overworld or when combat ends, if there's no clean path for the characters to get to where you're trying to go, they just won't move. They'll just stay there until you either manually take control of them and make them move, or until the, fire surface, as it most often is in my case, dissipates. And then they will move towards you.
Hopefully not on fire.
Hopefully not. But there's other things. A lot of things have really been changed and refined and simplified in terms of the leveling up and the character creation, or not character creation, but the character progression system. That's been simplified a little bit. It's been expanded in other ways, but crafting is no longer an individual skill. It's kind of a combination of a couple of other skills. Persuasion is now, like, previously there was the persuasion minigame where you could kind of cheese your way through something if you, like, save scummed enough. That minigame is gone, and now it's just purely a check, and if you have enough persuasion, you can pass, and if you don't, then you fail that check. Although the persuasion system, you get different types of persuasion, like, based on your other skills. So, like, if you're trying to persuade a character, it might say intelligence, and if your character's got a really high intelligence, and that's an easier check than if you did, like, a strength persuasion check or something like that. Which I like. That feels very D&D, very tabletop-esque. And I know that's what Divinity kind of sells itself as, is like the closest you can get to the freedom of tabletop with a modern RPG or PC game, or, video game. CRPG? CRPG, computer role-playing game. Sorry, my brain left me there for a second. And as I talk about this, rest assured, I'm going to be 100% spoiler-free. I don't want to ruin this for anybody. But other mechanics, things that have changed, the skill system for actually using skills is different and more forgiving. So you now have something called memory, and that's one of your overall skills that you can improve every level up. That basically the more memory slots you get, the more skills you can use at once. It's no longer limited by having, say, pyrokinetics. You had to get that up to level 5 to use certain spells in the first one. And as you leveled it up, you got X number of level 1 spells and X number of level 2 spells and so on. And now you just have memory slots. And certain powerful spells will take 2 or 3 memory slots to use, whereas the weaker ones will only take 1. So you can sort of manage it that way. As far as I have noticed, you don't need a specific or like a skill above level 5, but they go to level 10 now. And you get, they're called combat skill points. You get 1 every level up now. So you get a lot more that you can do with those. And the game really encourages you to mix and match. There are now certain skills or spells that require you to have, X number of points in one skill and X number of points in another. And then there's certain skills that affect a wide variety of things. Like, for example, there's a new skill called Polymorph. And Polymorph gives you extra attribute points. So strength, constitution, intelligence, etc. Every time you level up one of those, you get just a point for that. But also it affects an entire new class of spells, which are polymorph spells, that allow you to change aspects of your own character's body or another character during a fight. So, for example, you can, there's one that's called Sprout Wings, and your character grows wings, and then you can fly while you have the wings. And there's one that's like bull horns, and all of your movement basically acts like the bull rush or the charge skill? All of your movement basically acts like that, and you can run into characters and knock them over and gore them. But it will change some of your other stats while that spell is active. There's one that's called Spider Legs, and you sprout spider legs out of your back and can shoot spider webs. That one's really freaky looking, but it's actually extremely useful as a crowd control spell, because almost nothing except other insects insect type creatures are immune to being enwebbed. So you can lock characters down a lot easier than you can with spells. There's tons of little tweaks like that within the actual leveling up and character progression system. I think for the most part, it's for the better. There's a couple of things that are a little weird, and you really only need one character that can persuade. So then you wind up with characters that have, like, basically you need one character who's good at lore master. You need one character who's good at persuading, and then the sneaky stuff is kind of optional based on how you want to play. So you can have a character that's good at sneaky stuff. But then the skill tree for bartering is basically useless, because if your persuasion skill is high enough, people like you still get discounts, and money really becomes no object by the midpoint of the game. And you can get little healing items. Like there's a thing called, is it a rucksack or a sleeping kit or something like that. And it's an infinite item that you can use outside of combat that completely heals your party and removes all negative status effects. And you can get that at the very beginning of the game. It's just like lying on the beach. So you don't need to spend as much money on healing spells, and if you're a little careful in combat, you don't need as many, especially in the beginning of the game, revive scrolls.
Which is nice, because that's something we spent a lot of time on.
Yeah, now in the end game where I'm at, I have ran into a level where that I don't think I'm supposed to be because of the, just sort of the freedom, but I'm way over leveled and I'm getting my ass kicked. And so I've used a lot of revive spells. Like there's one of the talents that I've taken that's called ambidextrous that lets a character use all items for one less action point down to one. So a revive scroll costs 3 action points to use now. But that means I can use one for 2. And with the way that the action point system has been changed, that means that I can revive 2 characters every turn as long as I don't die. So it's like I can just keep throwing a character as cannon fodder at the enemy, and it's like, oh, let's just revive you. Just revive both of you every turn. And that's kind of
get the
what
sponge
I've had
of
to
corpse
do for...
retrieval.
Yes, indeed. But that's probably the next biggest thing is the change to the combat system. In terms of like item effects and interactions between different spell types, like the classic combination is oil and fire to create these huge fire fields that burn characters as they stand in them or run through them. But they've added a lot of new ones. Curse and Bless, which both existed in the previous game, can now create cursed or blessed surfaces, which have additional positive or negative effects. And then there's several new ones that have to do with sort of the key, MacGuffin of the game. So there's new surfaces with new properties.
The God Box 2.
And it can,
it's the God Box 360, isn't it?
Yes, the 360 No Scope edition of the God Box. But so there's new effects. They have done a lot of things to help deal with that. So characters now have physical armor and magic armor. Whereas previously armor was just sort of a straight damage reduction, like sort of a percentage-based damage reduction, or would give you resistances to elemental damage, which elemental damage resistance still exists. But the way armor and equipment works now is that you have these 2 additional types of armor, and your health doesn't take any damage until either magic armor or physical armor is gone. And it's based on what type of damage you're receiving to which one gets hit. But while you have them active, no effects can hurt you. So if you have magic armor, then you can't actually be caught on fire, or you can't be frozen, you can't be stunned, that sort of thing. And then if you have physical armor, you can't be knocked down, you can't be crippled, you can't... what's the status effect? You can't be hit with decay if you have physical armor still, which decay is horrible. It turns all healing effects that you get into damage done. So that sucks.
So basically,
but anyways, sort of. But even poison doesn't heal you then.
Ooh,
because poison heals undead. But as long as you have one of those 2 armor types, then their respective status effects can't hit you aside from a couple of very specific high-level spells or a perk that you can take called Glass Cannon, which you can still take status effects through the armor, but you start every round with maximum AP.
You take Glass Cannon.
Everyone, I did not. No.
I know.
No, thank you, sir.
I had to talk you out of Glass Cannon last time.
You did, except for all of my characters, except for one, have Comeback Kid on them. That skill is very useful, and I wish I had it on all 4 of my characters, but I do not. I only have it on 3. Comeback Kid has saved my ass a lot now that I'm fighting consistently higher level enemies. But everyone has magic pockets all the time now, and it doesn't cost you any additional AP to use something directly from your bag, as opposed to having it down on your quick bar, which is handy. So you can now just basically have a pack mule and use stuff out of that person's bag, which for me is the Red Prince, which is the Medora of this game. He can carry like 300 and something pounds of gear because his strength is so high. So I just give him all the consumables, and everybody uses consumables from his inventory.
You have no idea half the shit Medora was carrying at the end, do you? She had like 3 or 4 different barrels.
I had a crate of Death Fog, which is a thing that's like a huge key plot point of this game, and it does exactly what you think it does. And he was just like carrying a crate around. I'm like, if I ever get in trouble, I'll just drop this crate and blow it up and kill everything. But it weighed like 200 pounds, and I had to drop it because I got a bunch of consumables for upcoming fights and stuff. Plus, I'm fighting a lot of undead now, and Death Fog doesn't kill undead, so I'm like, well, I might as well not even waste this inventory space. But characters now can only get 6 AP, as opposed to previously AP was affected by one of your stats, or maybe your gear, I don't remember specifically.
Both, actually.
But you could have up to, I think it was like 14 AP, but you could start with as little as like 4 or 5. But now every character starts every round with 4, and you can bank 2 to have a maximum of 6. There's also certain skills that will give you AP on your turn. Like there's one called Adrenaline, which gives you 2 AP now with the cost of 2 AP on your next turn. There's a skill called Second Wind or something like that, and whenever you kill an enemy, you get 2 AP. There's a couple others. Haste gives you an additional AP every turn. So, but I like it better. It's simplified, it's streamlined, it makes a lot more sense. And small changes don't completely affect your entire combat. Because previously it's like, oh, I'm going to change out my weapon. Oh, I lose 3 AP every turn. Well, that's not good. So, as far as storyline goes, I mean, it's fucking amazing. And it's much more level. So the first one, the first couple of areas were really good. And then it kind of falls apart due to the development cycle of the game. This one is very strong throughout. The first area that you start the game in, well, I guess the very first area, you're only there for like an hour. Because it's just like, quick like story, here's the tutorial, boom, drop you in the real first area of the game. You're there for 10, 12 hours, possibly more if you explore. I know I missed something because I didn't realize like one of the key game mechanics, which I can't talk about because it's a spoiler, but I didn't quite understand how that worked on the first island. And so I missed potentially a really big like story quest, like side story quest. And I'll have to do that on another playthrough. But, I spent about 10 hours there. And then the second location is where you spend the most of your time. I probably spent 40 hours in the second major area. And then you go to a third area that's smaller, but it makes sense why it's smaller. It's like you're there to do one specific task. There's a few side quests. Depending on choices you made, certain people may or may not be there that you can deal with. And then you complete it and you move on to what I think is the final area. And this is another pretty large area. So I'm level 18. I'm nearly level 19. I haven't looked to see what the level cap is, but I'm fighting things that are like level 19 and 20 all the time. So I'm definitely in the final area of the game, and I have gotten to a place too early because I mean the game basically gives you the freedom to do so. Because I was wandering around exploring, and I got in this dude's house, and I discovered like a secret room and a bunch of stuff, and like I got all these notifications like in my, or not notifications, but like updates to my story quests. And so then I went and I like explored that area, and I'm fighting these things like 2 levels higher than me. And then I come out from that area and I find some people that are like, oh hey, you know that guy? And it was the guy whose house I was exploring. There's some weird, spooky stuff going on in his attic. Maybe you should check that out. And it's like, yes, I already found that. Probably should have completed this quest first and then found out and then went to go do it. But, you know, that's the nature of the openness of this game. My favorite thing to do is to take a quest from someone, complete the quest, then kill them for experience and goodies. I do that regularly. I also do that. Like, I had one where the quest where I'm supposed to kill a demon. I found the demon. I did a quest for the demon. Then I killed the demon. It's like, yay! More XP and rewards. So, but the story is excellent. There are 6 characters that, you know, pre-crafted characters that have storyline, like a predetermined storyline already. Or I guess predetermined backstory and story hooks for them throughout the game. You can still create your own character, which I did, and then I picked 3 of the characters to go through and play the game with. And the other people show up at other times, but they're not like the main people you're hanging out with and experiencing the bulk of their story with. So I've got at least one more playthrough where I play and use the other 3 characters that I didn't touch outside of just the starting area. But I really, really, really want to play this game with you and let you just be like the hero dude, and I'll follow you around, and help out and just see how you play. And, you know, I would, if you wanted to know something, I would tell you, but I think that would also be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'd like to play it at some point. I just, well, it didn't drop low enough for me to want to jump on it. Because, yeah, last time we played Divinity, it was 1.5 years to beat, and that was actively recording it as well, so we were playing it longer than we probably would have otherwise.
Yeah.
There's no forced stealth section, is there? Because that just pissed me off.
No. At this point, no. You can do everything completely non-stealth. There are definitely times when stealth would be helpful or a good option, but you don't have to stealth anything. And yeah, there has been so far no convoluted section like what we ran into and had to go back and sort of backtrack and fix. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the original Divinity suffered from Kickstarter syndrome, where they had the first portion of the game out for so long that it got ridiculously polished, that the second map for it, while not terrible, really just pales in comparison. So, and that's not, necessarily a bad thing. It's just, it's just the way it was developed.
Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else that I really can talk about without spoiling the story. I'll probably come back to it at some point in the future, and maybe after we both play it, to talk story, because I mean it really is. I will say about the story, you don't have to have played the first Divinity Original Sin or Dragon Commander to get what's going on in this game.
Well, I'm glad I don't have to play Dragon Commander, because I really did not like that.
Yeah. But having played both of them gives a lot of extra context to things and a better understanding, because they reference the war that's in Dragon Commander. And characters from the first Divinity are mentioned. And one of them shows up. I mean, it's, like a sort of a magical, eternal type character shows up.
Oh, yeah.
And, if you don't know him, like, it doesn't matter. But if you do, it's like, oh, hey, it's that guy from the first game. Cool.
Yeah, he was kind of a douche.
Excuse me. But, hands down, though, best thing about the game, so far, I've slept with a skeleton man, a lizard lady, a human lady, a dwarf man, and I'm not sure if it was sex, but it felt very sexual what happened with an elven lady. So...
You slut.
Absolutely. Like, the first thing that I did, like... I mean, I was talking to everybody, because, that's what you do in this game, because it's fun. And it's like, someone's like, yes, this whole sexual relation thing, like, I've been studying your kind. And it was a skeleton man, and I'm like, oh, you wanna bone down? Because I have a character trait called Jester that basically lets you make bad jokes sometimes as a dialogue option.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, do you wanna bone down? And he was like, ha ha. Oh wait, you're serious? And it's like, I had sex with Skeleton Man. I was like, yeah.
Well, that's a thing.
I think next time I'm gonna play an elf, regardless of what class, because elves have this ability to eat body parts and gain people's memories. And sometimes they can pick up skills and abilities that way. So, I want to eat people and find out their memories. Silence. Is that stunned silence that you can...
No, it's more... it's hard for me to understand you trying to piece together what you're talking about, silence.
Ah. Cannibalism.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Elves
well,
can
it's not the fact that I didn't understand what you're talking about. It's more I couldn't understand you because your connection sucks, or my connection sucks, or something's going on.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we're gonna have to sit and try to toy around with Discord, I think.
But that's all I have to talk about with Divinity. So, would you like to take a turn?
Yeah, let's go ahead and dive into some Just Cause. Why? Well, because I played it. That's why. Well, I'm not going to make that joke again. So,
yeah, I know. I like that you didn't give the joke.
So, one of the games I picked up in the Steam Winter Sale that I actually gave you as well was the 3rd edition of Just Cause. The base game went dirt cheap, which what I gave you. Then I saw, the DLC pack is also really cheap. So I ended up grabbing that. And this feels like kind of a sidestep for the Just Cause series. I've played the first 2 and now 3. The first one I picked up because it was actually cheaper to get it along with Batman Arkham Asylum. I think they were the same publisher. And they had a bundle, and it was like, well, get Just Cause, and we'll knock off a couple bucks. And I still feel a little ripped off because it was really, really rough. Just Cause 2 I had fun with. I always had to go in and reset all my visual settings because it would always go 720p windowed in like the corner of the screen. And no matter what I did, I was never able to get it to actually remember, oh yeah, I have a 1080p monitor. And I would like full screen, please. And, actual decent visual settings. So Just Cause 3 at least fixed that. But it feels like I said a sidestep. So for those who don't know, Just Cause is essentially just a sandbox game where you go and liberate the shit out of everything. And by liberate, I mean, of course, blow up. You are Rico Rodriguez, and it seems like the only reason you're there is just to wreck shit and topple dictators. And for some reason, the way you topple dictators is literally just blow up everything. Everything that's red, must die. And it gets replaced with blue things, sometimes. So, this is him going back to his home archipelago. And they talk about this absolutely massive 1,000 square kilometer map. But it's an archipelago, so there's a lot of open ocean. And I would say it's actually probably about the same size as the second game's map altogether. Just based off what I could see on the overworld map. But since it's so spread out on these different islands with different, just vast ocean between them. They can boast that big number, but it doesn't really mean a lot because, one ocean wave is not that different from another one, right? Yeah, and I gotta say, the story is pretty throwaway. I mean, it's a Just Cause game, so you're pretty much just there to blow up random shit. You're there to topple a dictator that took over Rico's country after he left to join the agency that has been sending him to various third world places to to liberate the fuck out of them. And you're reconnecting with some people from Rico's past. And that's pretty much as far as I've gotten, because I kind of went off and did my own thing because, well, that's kind of the point of the game. But it's also kind of broken things at times. So let me explain. Just Cause, this one, it feels a lot more sandboxy than the previous ones. Even though I don't have a lot of experience with one, I played a lot of the second one. And that one, it broke down the game into various hub worlds where each of the major factions of the country that you're liberating the fuck out of had a series of quests that you had to go do for them to fulfill their requirements to be able to essentially boost their influence over a general area to progress the main story. In this one, you're pretty much told to just go do what you want. And it could sometimes kind of take the tension out of things, because one of the quests that I did, one of the main missions, missions, whatever, I had to go grab this magical MacGuffin to discover that is able to detect this magical element that the local dictator has weaponized. Well, the mission is playing this, really dramatic music, and it's acting like, okay, well, this is going to be a really tense moment. And all I'm doing is just walking through a place that I liberated 3 hours ago in game time, or play time, I should say. Because it was in the middle of this major high security base that I, kind of rained death upon from a tank and a few helicopters already. So it was already under my influence. And then it was continuing to play this really dramatic music as it had me go infiltrate this other base that I've already liberated the fuck out of. So there's times that, the open world nature of the game kind of plays against it, actually. And there's always, like the other Just Cause games, wacky moments. Sometimes the game bugs out a little bit. There's been times that I've just been ragdolled and, the game will just say, okay, you're dead. And it's happens actually quite a bit with the new method of transportation. So in the previous couple games, you had a parachute that magically repacks itself and you're able to deploy it at will. And Rico has a grappling hook that you're basically able to reverse Spider-Man down across the landscape by essentially just parasailing everywhere. And then just hijack a car, or even just tether to a car and let it just pull you along in the second game. Well, now he has a wingsuit, so now he's Flying Squirrel Man. And he's still able to grapple and pull himself along and essentially just somehow not lose altitude whenever he's just, latched to the ground ahead of him. Yeah, don't ask questions, right? Don't ask questions about the physics of this game.
Right.
And
no questions asked.
Magic. It's fuck you, that's why. Well, the new flight method, it also has it where if you clip something, you'll ragdoll, and if you hit something hard enough, you go full George the Jungle and you're dead. So it's a bit of a risk-reward using it, and it's also very easy to get ragdolled in it if you get caught in an explosion. Which, this is a Just Cause game, so, explosions only happen once every couple seconds. Because everything is made of explodium in this game. And they really up the amount of destructive objects in the game, especially in some of the larger military bases where you're taking out satellite comm links, all these satellite dishes, various fuel repositories, electrical substations, blowing up base commanders. But if you're using the wingsuit, you're playing it very, very risky. And it does look like there's upgrades to the wingsuit so that it'll have offensive capabilities later on. Which brings me to the one thing that I like the least about the game, the upgrade system. So you remember the previous game? How you had a bunch of items that you could just, upgrade items that you could find randomly to upgrade your whatever your weapon or cars that you want, depending on what item, what particular upgrade you found, or upgrade part.
Yes, sir.
Gone. Completely. Instead, everything is tied to challenges now. As you liberate the fuck out of things, and yes, I am going to continue using that, you unlock various challenges in one of, I think it's like 7 or 8 different categories. And as you complete these challenges, you gain gears depending on on how well you did in the challenge. So, like a race, if you get under a certain time, you may get 1 gear. Get a little bit faster, you get 2, up to 5. And these gears are spent on a linear progression system for each of the subcategories. So, doing activities where you are driving essentially a car or a buggy or something rigged with the same explosive that was used in Speed, where if you drop below a certain speed, you blow up. And you have to take out a particular target and not die in the process. So if you do well enough, you get in gears, and then that may upgrade your grenades. So the first one will always be glass grenades. So as soon as your grenades touch something, they blow up. The next one will give you more grenades. The next one gives you smart grenades, and so on. And it's a very linear progression. And each of the upgrade paths is like this, where there's no choice whatsoever. It's just go do the challenges to be able to get the upgrades, and you get more challenges as you liberate more and more of the map. Liberate the fuck out more and more of the map. And that is kind of a disappointment for me, actually. Because I like to be able to say, okay, well, this weapon was really cool. I could throw in some items into it to upgrade it to make it a little bit more punchy. That system is completely gone. As far as I can tell, there's no way to directly upgrade weapons. So it really falls down to find a weapon that you like, and that's pretty much what you're going to be playing with. There's weapon chests all over the place, that, especially in military bases, where you're able to refill your ammo, and depending on the chest, you're able to swap out, but you're also able to bring in weapons pretty much at will, which is the change that I kind of actually like. So in the second game, you had the black market where this guy with an outrageous accent, who also shows up in this one, will sell you weapons. Well, he later on in the game, you find out that he's actually been on your side the entire time, but he's still selling you weapons at an extremely high price. So if you're wanting to use more powerful stuff, you have to go, grind out money, and that was honestly never really any fun. It really kind of killed the pace of the game, because the game was always so over the top. It was very easy to lose, particularly vehicles, but just weapons in general. If you found something else that you needed for a short time, like a missile launcher, that sort of thing, it kind of put a little bit of a snag on that particular system. Well, that has been replaced with the Rebel drop system, where you have a certain number of beacons and flares. Beacons allow you to bring in one primary weapon, one secondary weapon, one special weapon, and a vehicle, or any combination of those. So if you only need a vehicle, you just bring in a vehicle, and you could replenish your beacons at particular spots. That as you also do side objectives or side little encounters, also start popping up more and more across the map. And flares is your fast travel currency, where, just to cover that real quick, where you can just quickly travel across the map, but it's free to jump anywhere, but leaving an area that is not under your influence costs a flare. And as you gain more and more gears in the travel aspects of the game, by doing various missions, I believe that one's actually the wingsuit, doing wingsuit challenges, it unlocks the ability to carry more and more flares. But I do like how they changed the black market to the Rebel drop system, where there's just things on a timer now. So if you ask for a tank, it takes them a while to procure another tank, but you can always just ask for something else if you have another beacon. So it makes it so that it feels a little bit better and you don't feel as tied to things. And also the gear system. This is the one place where the upgrade system works, is that it also upgrades the items that you get in drops. So you could have a tank with nitrous.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's been fun, and that's something that I've been using quite a bit, actually. But driving-wise, outside of the heavier vehicles, everything feels a little too arcade-ish. Like I'm playing like a gameplay from a PlayStation 1 game whenever I'm driving. It feels like a severe downgrade from the second game's driving mechanics. And I haven't really been able to put my finger on why. If it's just, it feels too simplified or what. But it also feels like they're de-emphasizing the use of vehicles for travel and just using fast travel everywhere, or just, flying squirrel everywhere once you get some altitude with the parachute. Because, you're able to blow up bridges, which really throws a wrench into traveling some places, especially if you want to keep a car. But then they have this whole, kind of schizophrenic thing going, where you also are told to go collect cars for the rebels by bringing different cars to a garage. Very GTA-esque, actually. You know how GTA always has the import-export mission?
Yeah.
That's in this game. Where only it's in pretty much every liberated town. There's 3 different categories. There's military bases, military outposts, and towns. Towns pretty much always has a garage. And usually a few added challenges attached to it. Military outposts are usually for weapons and beacon/flare upgrade or refills, while military bases also have challenges attached to them. Sometimes outposts do as well, but also usually have some sort of military vehicle that's added to the Rebel drop system. But overall, I have been having fun with it. There are some things I would like to see changed. The game does bug out at times. Like, just earlier today I was liberating the fuck out of a military base. And this particular military base had a commander that you had to take out. After you took out so much of the base itself, the military commander would show up and, you would have to kill him in order to finish off the base. Well, he shows up in a helicopter. Well, this is just cause, so what am I going to do? I'm going to grab the helicopter and blow him up with it. Well, you're not supposed to do that, and because I grabbed him out of the helicopter, he actually fell through the world. I had to leave the area and come back and then just blow up the helicopter instead of, doing it the more stylish way, which is a little disappointing. And
yeah, that doesn't feel very just cause.
Yeah. I mean, there's times that the game does some odd things. There's times that it just feels like it didn't expect you to be able to do that, especially latching onto an airplane. I've done that. And it it takes you a while to reel in because it feels like it's very, Looney Tunes-esque and draws you out because it doesn't really want to catch up the momentum very well. But overall, I am having fun with it. Maybe I would have a little bit more fun with the driving if I go to gamepad controls, but that's something else is that the game does have a forced aim assist. And for some of the heavy weapons, it just feels like it's makes things even worse. One of the first upgrades you get just by doing one of the gun ranges, which my add with mouse and keyboard is, drop dead easy, is the ability to essentially zoom in and disable aim assist for a short time, which really helps, especially with some more pinpoint weapons, like the snipers. DLC is, I would say, not really required, except for maybe the additional mission stuff. It does offer you some early stuff, like a goddamn mech. But
nice.
The mech isn't amazing. It's it has missiles on it, but it also has a gravity gun, and the gravity gun can sometimes do wonky shit. It's not bad. I mean, I'm not sure if I would buy it separately for $5, but since I got it as part of the Ultimate Edition or whatever it was, the Just Cause XXL Edition, it was, I think, worthwhile picking up. But overall, I would say just the mission-based stuff is likely all you really need.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't quite gotten to the mission stuff yet. Or to the additional mission areas, I should say, because I'm just really kind of wrapping up the first island. The first area is like 2 main islands, and I've done the first one. And they do kind of do a semi-hard wall where if you attack the main command post on the first island, it has a special, not quite orbital weapon, but, off-map weapon that will just pound the ever-living fuck out of you. And no, Jared, not in the good way.
Wink.
But you have to kind of liberate the fuck out of the rest of the island, or a good chunk of the island, in order to unlock a mission to be able to disable it. Otherwise, you're going to be in for a hard time. I'm not sure if you'd be able to do it, or if, there's something else that would prevent you, but, I just went, goofed off with the rest of the stuff. But overall, like I said, I have enjoyed it. That's probably going to be one of my games I pick up and play every so often, just to give, blow off some steam and liberate the fuck out of some people. And it is a lot more gamified than it was in the second one, where the second one wasn't taking things seriously. This time they're not taking it seriously at all. Yeah, I mean, they literally tell you to grapple, hook shot the ground essentially to prevent fall damage, which was a trick that you could eventually learn yourself in the second one. This time they're just embracing it. So,
which I approve of.
Yeah,
there's not enough games that are like, hey, let's just be dumb and silly and fun. There's also nothing wrong with serious games. I don't mean that, but it's, feels like so often games are like, oh, we're not going to do this fun thing because then it won't be realistic enough.
Okay, sure. I caught some of that at least. But yeah. One thing I didn't talk about is the random encounters, where this kind of replaces all the side missions that you really get. Otherwise, it's just, just a string of the main missions. And these can happen pretty much any time. So, I had one pop up while I was in the middle of liberating the fuck out of a military outpost, where something happens and Rico needs to go deal with it. It could be something simple like a resistance member, their car ran out of gas and they just need to tow to the local gas station. So you grapple to a car, or you just actually pull it with your grapple and pull it to the gas station. Others may be a gate stuck, or there may be a rebel force that is being pinned down and you have to go help them. Or there's a convoy that's under attack and you have to go save them. Or it could be something as simple as there's a mole in the organization and you have to hijack a limousine to go pick them up and then murder them to be able to stop the leak of information. And they're pretty varied. Sometimes I'll get the same one pop up within like half an hour of each other. But they all offer chaos points, which I'm not sure if there's anything that happens at certain milestones in it or not. But it also eventually unlocks, depending on the mission and where you are, more beacon and flare reload up points that you're able to use the rebel drop system more often. And if you're in an area that you haven't taken control of yet, it's good to have a flare to be able to get out of there if need be, or just have a point in the area where you could drop in and then fast travel to somewhere else in that area and still be able to reuse your flare without having to take the long way back. So, that is nice. And sometimes those do wacky shit as well. Like, there's been times that they've acted like, they're under fire whenever I've already killed everyone. Or whenever the one stars drop down too far and the game doesn't quite know what to do there. Because, I took care of everyone up too quickly for the wanted stars to make it so that everything starts respawning. It almost feels like at times that the game is kind of confused if you're too good at it. Which sounds like I'm really patting myself on the back there, doesn't it? But maybe it's just, mouse and keyboard versus gamepad, where if I'm doing things too quickly, the game gets a little confused at times. It's not something that I want to knock it completely on, because the wacky nature of the game kind of fits. But at the same time, I did knock Skyrim for being a buggy piece of shit. I guess the difference is that, just cause it's not a piece of shit, it's just a blow up sandbox game. Mm-hmm. I guess context, right?
Yeah. I'm definitely going to be playing it. I mean, I don't exactly know when. Divinity 2 is like the first thing that I got to finish, and then I got other Steam sale stuff to play more, and then you got me that. But I mean, I'm more looking forward to it than not. Well, that's a weird way to say it. I'm definitely looking forward to playing it, and you haven't made me feel like it's not something I would enjoy. So
yeah, I think you would enjoy it. Do you think you may eventually want to get the XXL edition, which I think is a complete year edition thing, so it will be a pretty cheap pickup.
Nice.
Like I said, I think it was $5 total. It was like $5 or $6. It wasn't exactly breaking the bank there. So I think it would be something that you would enjoy, especially just, getting them back and just rampaging around, especially in the early times whenever you don't have a lot of military stuff in your Rebel drop system yet. And there are times that the games has some intentional humor, like in order to complete the import-export mission, you have to fill out various types of cars, and one is like utility vehicles, and one is a tractor, and you bring that in, and they just say, Rico, you know that's a tractor, right?
Nice.
But they still use it, so so I guess the rebels needed tractors all along.
Well, everybody needs a little tractor now and then. Get a little redneck up in there.
Well, they are pretty far south from what I can tell. It is the tropics.
Touche. Cool. Well, the other game I'm going to talk about for this week is a lot shorter to talk about. It's a game called Transroad USA. It's a transportation, I guess, tycoon type game, specifically about managing a trucking company. It's got free play mode. It's also got a story mode where you and your trucking buddy get fired by the big corporate meanie. And so you start your own company, and you're going to be bigger and better than him one day and make all the money. It's not a bad game, but the thing is I've played so many better transport tycoon type games that it didn't really have anything that stood out to me. It's got a little bit of a weird system for creating, or for getting jobs. Since you're essentially an independent trucking company, you have to manage each and every one of your drivers in your trucks and set them up on routes and find regular jobs for them as you sort of, I was going to say level up, but as your company grows in size and you get more drivers and more locations and things, eventually you build up a reputation with either cities or companies or things like that, and you can set up automatic jobs or not automatic, recurring jobs, so that you can just stick a truck or two on an automatic job. That way they're going to be consistently churning out income for you. But for every single city as you expand across the U.S. and for every company that exists in the game, you've got to do this for. And until that happens, you wind up having to micromanage one or maybe two drivers at a time to build up those reputations. And it's kind of tedious. I was just starting to get some recurring sort of contract-based jobs that I could assign one of my 4 drivers to and keep them running. The game doesn't do a very good job with sort of tooltips and explaining a couple of things to you. Right away, it's like, hey, get a second driver and a second truck and assign them to stuff. And you're like, okay, great. And you buy the truck and you hire the driver. And then you can't assign the driver to the truck. And it's like, it's telling you, like, go to your depot, but the link for the depot takes you to the HQ instead of the actual depot. And there's another button you have to press that's like in the HQ to pull up the depot for the first time, and then it shows up on just right there on the HUD where you can access it quicker. But it doesn't tell you that the first time. So it took me probably an extra 20 minutes to get my second truck running. And then by the time I was done, I had, like I said, 4 trucks, and I built up a good reputation with a couple of the companies in the game. All the cities are real because it's using a map of the U.S., but all of the companies are fake. So it was like, like Baltimore Furniture something or other that I had built up a reputation with. It does do things like different trailers and different truck types, and initially you start with just like a dry trailer, dry goods trailer, which can transport a wide variety of simple goods. Later you can get like refrigerated trailers and flatbeds and car haulers and specialty contracts, and you can get 2-axle trucks, 3-axle, 4-axle trucks, and different sizes and all of those, and different power ratings and all this jazz. And there is a little system for being like, okay, your truck can pull this fine, or it can pull it, but it has some kind of penalty because the load is too heavy. And then, your truck can't pull this at all. It's way too heavy, or it can't actually support that much weight. Like, there's systems in place for that. I think it's also got like truck maintenance and fuel costs and things like that, but I feel like that's pretty randomized because you'll see 2 models of the same truck every once in a while whenever the dealership refreshes. And it's like, oh, well, this model is the exact same as this one, but for some reason this one only needs maintenance every 20,000 miles, and this one needs it every 10. Or this one has a fuel efficiency of like 7 miles to the gallon, and this one is like 4, but they're the same truck. So I don't know. You can buy secondhand trucks and then brand new trucks, and that might have something to do with it, but it just feels kind of random. And so sometimes I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go buy a new truck, and there would just be nothing that I could afford, or nothing that was like, well, I mean, I could afford that, but I don't need this type of truck. I need this one. Or I want a truck that gets more than 5 miles to the gallon or something like that, and it just felt a little random. So, I mean, it's not bad. I know I'm basically only talking about negative things, but it genuinely is not a bad game. And if for some reason, if your personal preference is trucking versus, trains, or a more fully fleshed out game that has multiple things to it, or if you would rather have something that's at least somewhat based in the real world, because like I said, this uses a map of the United States and major cities within the United States. If one of those two things is sort of more important to you, or a bigger focus for you, then this is not a bad game. But when it comes to these type of transportation manager or tycoon games, there's just so many better ones out there. And I'm not going to be talking about it this week because I haven't put enough time into it. But probably next week I'm going to be talking about... Well, no, next week is the Gameclub... Or not Gameclub, the VGL Awards, right? Hello?
Well, it sounded like you were mid-sentence. Like I said, it's been hard for me to understand what the hell you've been talking about at times.
Well, I said next week we're doing the VGL Awards, right?
Yeah, I didn't hear right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to have to tackle Discord when we're having some downtime.
Probably in 2 weeks, I will be talking about Transport Fever 2, which is vastly superior to this overall. So, it's not bad, but there's a lot better of these types of games. So, if for some specific reason you would rather have this, then go for it. It's worth it. But if you're just looking for the best sort of transportation management game that you can get, skip over this one and go for something else.
Well, alrighty then. So my last one, at least for now, I do have 2 others I could talk about as well, but yeah, we're already running a little bit long. Is Holy Potatoes We're in Space? So this is a sequel to Holy Potatoes, A Weapon Shop, which I actually never played. Watched a few videos on. And it didn't seem like my thing. It seemed like it was more just kind of just sit there and watch it do its thing. But this one is a little bit more active. It's in the roguelike genre with some strategy and a little bit of RPG in it as well. So you are a pair of sisters who are trying to recapture your kid, or return your kidnapped your kidnapped grandfather from the what was it, the Empire? I'm trying to remember exactly. It's
I think it's the Empire.
Yeah, it plays very loose and fast with its story. It has a story, but it's kind of an overarching story with a lot of sub-quest and a lot of humor in it. So the big thing about this game is that it does not take itself very seriously as well, much like Just Cause, where there's each chapter essentially is broken down into a galaxy. And once you complete the main story, you can move on to the next galaxy. But it's also like FTL, where if you take too long, the Empire catches up with you because you're trying to find your grandfather to take down the Empire, but the Empire is also chasing you with their big, badass battleship, and if they catch up with you, they're pretty much going to murderize you. So you're trying to find a way to take them down before they catch you and kill you. And you have just so many days in each system to do that, to essentially complete your quest there, to move on to the next one. And I've had a Ghostbusters-esque mission. I've had Phantom of the Opera. I've had Pokemon to show up a couple of times. I've had Doctor Who to show up. I've had anime references galore. I've had, pretty much any pop culture you could think of. There's some sort of thing about it. I've had Pokemon show up. Saitama from One Punch Man showed up, only they called him One Pun Man, but it was obviously Saitama. And everyone
Nice.
is edible. They're potatoes, onions, carrots, broccoli. I had Judge Dredd show up, but he was Judge Spud. Trying to think of some of the other ones. There was a few references that I didn't get, which may just be, was over my head. Like I said, the doctor shows up a couple times. He hands you an object that says, "Oh wait, this is the first time I met you, but not the first time you met." Or sorry, this is the first time you met me, but not the first time I met you. So here, hold on this object to give it to me later. And you're just, huh? And like I said, it does take some severe influence from FTL, or I think it came out after FTL at least. FTL has been a few years old now, where each area has various encounters that you can take, and they play out in different ways. But the combat is actually kind of interesting, where you're essentially there taking turns at punching one another. But it's the combat, I think, is kind of the weakest point for me, at least for right now. But it may just be because I think I screwed up early in my run. I did not spend enough time exploring the few opening areas, and I fell behind on the amount of money I had, so I wasn't doing my research as much as I should have. I wasn't leveling up my crew as much as I should have, because all the crew members that you get have various skills they can have. That you start off with two skills per crew member, but they can have up to 4 if they spend time training. If they are in a weapon that blows up, which can be targeted individually from your ship, they get traumatized, and you have to put them essentially in counseling and let them work it out. Otherwise, if you put them on another weapon, that weapon has a debuff. Either it takes more energy to use, or has lesser attack power, or something along those lines. So I think the combat I'm not as qualified to talk about, just because I've been struggling a little bit because I didn't explore enough. But overall, you have a charge that you build up based on your ship's reactor that you could level up independently, which is used to channel energy into one of up to 4 different weapons, depending on your ship's level and upgrades. And different weapons do different things. Like there's a hopscotch, which has damage jump from one area to another, dealing less and less damage on each jump. There's essentially shrapnel weapons, which are essentially shotguns and hit just 5 random hits. There's lasers that are pinpoint accurate, but only hit one item. There's proton weapons that will drop shields quickly, which shields can only protect one item or the ship's hull. But you can also see where the enemy is targeting to try to mitigate that damage. But it is a very, very interesting game, and it's a lot deeper than what Item Shop Tale seemed to be, which is why I picked it up, and I've been enjoying it. It's just I'm not far enough to give more than my first impressions. And I think I'm going to go back and probably restart to just see what I get, because I know at least some of the chapters have different options, or different options to play through. So I may not get the Ghostbusters one next time. I may get a different one, or I may not get particular encounters in the order I did. And that's kind of the fun of the roguelite, of just seeing what you get. I know you played this one before, right?
Yeah, it's been about a year since I've played it, so there's a lot of it that I don't remember. And there's several of these Holy Potatoes games, and generally they're very different, but some of the mechanics get mixed up in my brain for them. So, I mean, obviously, this one is space combat as opposed to sort of fantasy RPG style combat, but and everything's space themed, but crafting and building and selling and the different actual mechanics, like some of them get a little
it uses a day system, sort of like the jumps in FTL, where everything is built that you craft and research and that sort of thing. It takes so many days or souls. So if you and each time you travel, it's 1 day. So if you're building something that takes 2 days, you have to move 2 times or wait 2 times. If you're researching that takes usually 3 or 4, it takes quite a while, and you may not get through it in one particular galaxy, particularly if you hit a short chapter. And different galaxies seem to have different lengths. So one I had a limit of 15. Then the next one had a limit of like 10. Then the next one had a limit of 25. And I'm not sure if that's arbitrary or if all of the options for those particular stages of my progression have that same limit. But it has been interesting. It's been cute. I'm a little concerned about replayability after a few playthroughs. But I did picked it up for fairly cheap, so that's not too bad. I'm not sure if it's worth the $15 asking price, though. I would say definitely wait for a sale.
I definitely agree with that part. Wait for a sale. I enjoyed it, but I don't remember. I'm pretty sure I said, I think I got a review copy for it, and I said I didn't feel like it was worth the price that they were asking for it, but it's not bad, and you could enjoy it if you got it on a sale.
Yeah, I think this is their latest one, is a cooking show in hell. It's essentially a Japanese Iron Chef-esque cooking show, only it happens in hell.
Nice.
It has some pretty bad reviews. The other one, I mentioned the item shop tale, is a spy story. It's stealth.
A spy story, yeah. Which I have a spy story. I got a review code for that, and I haven't played it.
Yeah, I see some definite references. I mean, that's obviously Spider-Man. That's Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop. Link. One of the Assassin's Creed characters. You can't really tell which one just from the look of them because they pretty much all look the same.
I think it's Altair, the one from the very first Assassin's Creed game.
Which would make sense, but yeah. Essentially, they're... And it's also rated pretty poorly. Oh, no, this is the latest one, the spy story. It's 2018, so they're probably due to release another one if they're working on one. I mean, like I said, not bad. It's definitely more worthwhile if you pick it up on sale.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll probably toy around with it some more as well. But then again, I did have other things to play. But are we ready for that transition?
Indeed. Let's move on to our game club. Hopefully, whatever our issues with Discords are holds up.
Yeah, I mean it's just it's been really bad at times.
Yeah, you're choppy too. Listening to you describe it, it sounds like mine is worse. But I mean, sometimes I'm having a hard time understanding you as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're gonna have to figure that out or come up with the alternate memes if necessary.
We'll muddle through for the rest of tonight. So, Game Club. Game Club is a time where Rage and I play the same game at the same time and talk about it, because often we have different tastes in games, or even when we like the same game, we play it at different times.
I was going to say, Holy Potatoes, we're in space.
Indeed. So, for the month of December, which we're getting to in this first recording of January,
Like we always
just because
do.
of Christmas and New Year, indeed, we played My Time at Portia, which we thought it was pronounced Portia before we played the game, and in my opinion, that's a better title, Portia, as opposed to Portia. But, whatever.
Yeah, My Time
I
at
didn't
Portia
design the
sounds
game.
like a racing game.
It does, yeah. And this is definitely not that.
Now, so My Time in Portia. This is a open world. Well, the Steam tags have it as a farming sim, but that's an outright lie. It is a building sim, actually, where you manage a item shop or should say essentially a blacksmith shop. And you fill out orders, you get to know the town, you go exploring, and it's a lot more freeform than, I would say, Stardew Valley. It would probably be the more contemporary comparison these days. I mean, I definitely see comparisons to Stardew Valley.
When you say freeform, what do you mean by that?
As in, go do whatever you want. You do get missions, but if you completely ignore them, they do eventually get done, and the story continues. Which I found out that it does happen, because
I assume that
the other shops
gets them.
The other shops start taking care of it, which is an interesting way to handle it, right? But I like that. I actually looked into that. Towards the end of my playtime with it, or I should say, before we talked about it, because I do think this is going to be another one that I'm going to keep playing. This was on the Game Pass, so we got it as part of our subscriptions to just toy around with, and it's been an interesting time. Like I said, I did look into it, and eventually, if you completely ignore story quests, they do get done. So there is some sort of progression always going on. It's a lot slower. Like, for example, I didn't do the DD stops right away because, I hit a certain point of the story when I was low on resources, so I had to go mine for actually several days to be able to get resources. And I think that's also why our stores are out of sync. But it also is really interesting that because I didn't do certain things as quickly, my time frame has slipped so that you're getting story events happening a lot sooner in your time frame, but they're still in order. As far as I can tell, at least.
Yeah, we talked about this Sunday.
Yeah.
Just kind of comparing. And we're both pretty close to one another on the calendar. We're both in the middle of summer. I'm in the middle of summer, and you're kind of in the beginning of summer.
I think I'm on like the second or third day of summer.
So you're like a week behind me, but I am 3 or 4 story quests ahead of you.
Yeah, which
just because I didn't hit the same sort of problem you did, I guess, and so I was doing a lot.
It's just I didn't mind as much, so I was low on resources whenever it was the quest right before the DDs. So I went and realized I was low resources, so I mined like a madman for like a week. So I have like 400 iron ore that's being processed, which things are processed in a certain amount of time. So one iron ore to turn into iron bar is like an hour some game time. And there's only so many hours in a day, so it's all my forges are going to be going 24/7 pretty much.
And there's also only so many items you can queue up in a forge, and you get larger forges as you go.
Yeah,
but even they still have limits. So
which I still kept my original 4 forges to just work out through the lower level stuff like bronze and stuff, and left the big forges for more important stuff. Even though the big forges do have a slight bonus to processing the older stuff, I didn't want to rebuild or tear down the old ones and have fewer forges. It seemed like a net negative to me.
Yeah. I've got 2 of everything. So, of the bottom tier forges, I've got 2. And then the tier 2 of forges, I have 2. And then the tier 3, I have 2. And then that's the same goes for the...
See, I have even... I was just starting to unlock the tier 3 stuff as well.
Yeah. And
I'm not sure if that's because I didn't rush any of the research either. But I've also went a couple days where I forgot to turn in more discs. Because, like I said, I was busy mining, so I have like 200 some discs, which is the currency to turn into for research, but also to give to the church to destroy to get crops and stuff if you want to go farming.
Yeah, which I want to talk about that in a minute. But initially, I wasn't boosting things, but I got so many discs. I mean, I've got stacks and stacks of discs. I've got like 250 or 300. So now I'm just like max rushing everything. Because it's like, I've got all these discs. They're very clearly not a limited resource. So, I'm just turning them in as fast as I can for research bonuses or boosts. But yeah, so this game, story-wise, it hits all of the, I guess, sort of high points that you think of for this type of game. There's the festivals you go to and the events and the mini games.
Well, I was going to say also the inheriting of a farm.
Yeah, inheriting of a farm.
Or workshop in this case.
Workshop. The inheriting of a thing. You inherit the thing. You can build relationships with people. Almost everyone in the game is romanceable and by anybody. So, same-sex relationships, everybody's cool with that.
It is the future.
It is. There are a few characters that are not, like the grandma. She's not romanceable.
At least with that attitude.
The mayor's not romanceable. There's some other people who are already married that you can't romance. But everybody who's single and is not a child can be romanced.
Yeah, essentially everyone like your age bracket, because the children you can also romance. Sorry, it's the future, but they're not that progressive.
Yeah. So, there's all of those things. But and you were the one who told me about this initially. One of the things that I find so interesting about this is that it's a post-apocalyptic game. There was some kind of apocalyptic event that resulted in...
They lean towards it being a nuclear winter because they talk about bringing the sun back and how it was dark for so long, and some I believe the grandmother's Sophie's grandmother or great grandmother used to live in a or they did say bunker, but they said underground, and there was very little food and there was a lot of people there. So you're able to kind of piece together, okay, World War III happened, we blew ourselves up, and essentially did a reset on civilization.
Yeah. So you're rebuilding from I almost said ashes, but that's not right. A lot of things in the world and in nature have recovered, but I just think that's fascinating, a fascinating concept for one of these types of games. It gives a more full context for what you're doing instead of just being like, well, randomly I'm going to quit my job and start a new life. It's like, no, you're part of this sort of trade guild that goes around, or builders guild that goes around and establishes facilities in various cities, and you build them up, you work on them, and sometimes people move on, sometimes they stick around. Like your father was the one who had the shop before, and he's moved on and gave you the shop, but I just think that that's really cool, and it gives context for the neat little like ruins and things that you find. It's like, oh, they're ruins of the old world.
Well, not just that. They're the relics of the old world that you find, and they sometimes throw a little bit of humor in it. Like one time I found a toilet, and they weren't quite sure what it was, and they were trying to figure out, okay, well, maybe it's something that you washed your hair in back in older times. Or there was a racket. Trying to think of some of the other things I found recently. Randomly, I've got several couches, and it's just it has the post-apocalyptic feel, but it doesn't feel dreary like a lot of post-apocalyptic games do. It doesn't feel like we blew ourselves up, the world is gone to shit. This is several generations after the fact, after the nature has recovered, and it feels very optimistic. But then there's this kind of almost fight between the church and the technologists. I shouldn't say almost. There is a fight between them, because the Church of Light is very leery of new technology and technology being dug up, and they actively destroy it because we blew ourselves up once, and they don't know what actually happened because that knowledge has been lost, even though you kind of piece it together, somewhat. And they're leery of that, so they're actively destroying stuff, while the researchers are trying to figure out what happened to prevent that from happening again. And there's this conflict that I haven't gotten far enough into the game to be able to really tell if one side is right or not, or if they leave it ambiguous and just let you do your own thing and draw your own conclusions. And I kind of hope they do that, where there's not a right or wrong side. Both of them are right, but both of them are wrong.
Yeah, so far there's not been really like a clear, like, aha, this is what we're supposed to believe is correct. I mean, granted, there's still a lot of story left for me to go through too, even though I'm a little bit ahead of you. But it's still mostly just events happen, and one or both sides will comment.
And for now it's also just building up the city as well, or building up the town that you're in, like putting in a fast travel network, or checking out what's going on with this rash of thefts that's been going on, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So far it hasn't said we think you should believe this.
And it hasn't been preachy either.
It could, but yeah, which I was surprised. I mean, my initial response was well, fuck the church. I want all that knowledge. But, as I've spent more time learning about the characters and the world, I'm okay, I disagree, but I could see why they would feel this way.
Yeah, and the world feels a lot more connected with itself, partly because it is all just one map. And it's just as you progress through the story, more options for travel unlock and more bridges and that sort of thing happens, or it gets built. But there's just the little things, like all the characters actively walk from one place to another, which sounds kind of silly to make it feel like it's connected, but because it's one big map, they're not going through map transitions, and you're just having to catch them on the map transition. They walk to and from festivals, even though it is a little silly that they all kind of walk pretty much in a single file, like they're sand people, or sorry, sand people. But yeah,
from Star Wars.
Star Wars. But yeah, it's just the first time I saw them all walking back to town to take go back to their shops and stuff. It was oh, that's neat that they actually do that instead of just teleport, which would have been kind of the easy option.
And then on top of that, I like that, but the game also doesn't restrict you, the player, by them not being at their shops. It still's okay, I'm a game, and if you need something, you shouldn't have to wait for somebody to show up to their shop. So they all have some kind of cash register or something you can interact with, and have full access to the shop, even if the person is not there to manage. So I like that.
I just kind of took it as kind of like the honor system. This town is small enough that everybody knows everybody. So, they know that, or them well enough that you don't want to cheat them. And everybody just leaves their doors unlocked during shop hours, no matter what, if they're there or not. At least that's my headcanon of why they do it, But also,
I might headcanon that.
Also speaking of social, the social network system is something I hadn't seen in other games like this, where different characters are connected to one another through kind of, it's usually through family ties. So if you're making friends with let's say, trying to think of Alice's brother's name. If you're making friends with Alice, who is the local florist, her brother, if you hit a certain milestone with her brother also starts to like you a little bit more. Or if you make friends with Mars, who runs the local weapon shop, weapon and ore shop, his wife will like you a little bit more. If you make friends with Sophie, who runs the grandma that is running the farm shop near your workshop, all her grandsons will like you more. And it kind of ties everything together, but it also makes it a lot more sense, you know?
Yeah.
And it also unlocks certain milestones once you get past a certain point. See, I've been friendly with pretty much everyone, so I haven't really focused on anyone. So I have my first page is all 1 heart, 1 star, which is the measurement system. If you could romance someone, it's a heart. If it's not, it's a star. But it's quickly snowballing, where as you build up your skill tree, which is essentially a talent system, think old World of Warcraft in the 3 different areas, combat, trade, and social. As you build up your skill points there and you get more of the social skills, it becomes easier to level those up without having to resort to just bribing everyone, like you do in Stardew Valley. Just talking to someone gives you a little bit of social standing with them. You can beat the ever-living fuck out of them, and some people like fighting you, some people don't. Some of the more combat-focused characters like fighting, and they'll like you for winning or losing. Some will like you only if you win or lose, depending on how they feel. And it feels very organic. And I really like that.
Yeah.
And as you go up through the social standings with them, you're able to go on dates with them. You can just go on play dates. You can play rock, paper, scissors. You could play Connect 4 with some of them. And it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of variance as well. You can go to the bar and play a bunch of mini games for items as well. Just play the slot machines. Play darts, which honestly I found the dart game to be dead simple.
Yeah, the dart game's really easy
Yeah.
to get, highest score in.
Yeah. But I think that's probably the downside of this game, is it feels like all the little mini games for the different activities are kind of half baked. Will you agree with that one? The fishing mini game is feels like it's lacking something, but I can't quite put my finger on what. Maybe it's just it's a little too easy with mouse and keyboard.
I don't really spend all that much time fishing. It doesn't feel so. I've never spent a lot of time fishing in most of these games. I like Stardew's better, but I haven't felt like this one is lacking. And as for the mini games, I don't feel like they're half baked, because they are mini games.
Yeah, no, it's just
I've played each of them for.
To me, it should require some sort of skill. In the fishing game, it's literally just move the mouse back and forth and keep the circle on the fish, which is somewhat similar to how Stardew does it, but Stardew introduces a little bit of timing, because it's essentially a Flappy Bird-esque game, and as you skill up, it becomes easier and easier, while there's no skill number attached to it. So it may just be tool-based, and I just never bothered equipping a better fishing rod, because honestly, outside of getting an extremely rare and valuable fish, I never lost a fish. So maybe it just feels like there's no need to progress, because it's all too easy. And like we said, the dart game was also very simple. It's just it's a rotating dartboard, and if you have just even a modicum of decent timing, which sure hope you do for the combat. We'll get to that. Then you're able to max out the score every time, and then it's just a matter of grinding out to get whatever you want out of the item shop from there.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just too easy. Maybe that's a problem.
I do like the Connect. I do really like the Connect 4 game.
Yeah, the Connect 4 I did have trouble with, but that also but that's also kind of an odd one as well.
I accidentally spent an entire day playing Connect 4 with Isaac because I didn't realize how much time passed, and I'm like, I'm gonna beat this fucker, and so I'm like, play, and finally I just like gave up, and I'm like, oh, it's dark. So I spent an entire day playing Connect 4 with Isaac.
Yeah, that's the only minigame I had trouble with.
So combat, that's probably the next place to go with it.
Yeah, I didn't do a ton of combat, but when it did pop up, once you got down the pattern, okay, let's go here. Let's do this. This is the Dark Souls of Stardew Valley. There. We don't have to do that anymore.
Okay.
Where...
Right.
But you see that now, don't you? This is the Dark Souls of farming sims, where the combat is a lot of timing-based, learning the patterns of a particular boss. It's not as difficult as any Soulsborne game, but at the same time, it's not exactly something that you could just easily just hack and slash into. You have to have a little bit of timing and learn the patterns, or you're going to have a bad time, or just out level everything.
Well, yes and no. So for the basic combat, you don't really have to do that.
Well, I'm
just
talking bosses
through everything.
For
the bosses. So I'm going to talk about something that is like 1 or 2 quests after yours, where you're at. Just briefly. So I got dumped into a combat-focused mission I just didn't realize that that's what it was going to do. Like, there's a thing, you have to go fix it. You fix the thing, and there's like an explosion, and it knocks you and another character, one of the town guards, into the sewer system. And you wind up having to fight a bunch of rat men, and then you fight the Rat King in the sewers. And I had no energy restoring items. So basically I was having to run around and kite all the enemies towards the security guard, who thankfully had infinite health. And she could die, but she would just revive right there after a few seconds. And she had to deal with that. And then right before the boss fight, I got some stuff that would let me restore stamina. And also it gave me a full stamina back. And I'm like, well, how am I going to beat this guy in one go? Yes, it's not hard. It is some pattern recognition and getting the timing down. But I just didn't have anything to help me in this fight. And he had a lot of health. And it took me a long time to wear him down. But I died a couple of times. I'm like, well, shit, I'm going to have to restart. But you don't. It just drops you outside the combat arena, and you can walk in, and you have fully restored health and stamina, and the boss is still at the same health where you're at. So it can certainly be more tedious and time-consuming to fight bosses if you just kind of smash your face against them repeatedly until they die, but there's no penalty for losing in the boss fights. You just respawn and keep going. So, yes and no.
That's why I said that there's no real difficulty at them. It's just you're spending a lot more time doing it.
Yeah.
But we had to throw the Dark Souls of at least one time this year, right?
Yeah. But I mean, the combat, there is a combat. It's not really an arena, but it's you unlock it and you can go to it, and it's got increasingly more difficult levels with higher rewards. in the town in like one of the ruins. I don't know if you've got that or not yet.
No, I don't.
Okay, yeah, you unlock it, and it's got essentially various levels that you can go through, and once you complete it, you unlock the next level, sort of like kind of like a descending dungeon or whatever, and you get various rewards, and then you can send the guard in for you, like you can pay them, and they can get the same rewards, so you don't have to do it again. You just pay them to go through there.
Yeah, well, that is something is that I haven't gotten the tree farm yet, but eventually you could get at least some of the more tedious items just by hiring other people and having them farm them for you, so you can focus on the more fun stuff, which I actually kind of like.
Yeah.
Actually,
I do too. I already have the city guard because you go to I for the life of me can't remember what their actual name is, but that's what they are, is the guards.
the
You
civic
can go to their
something.
office at with the civic dudes. You can go to their office and they have like a bulletin board, and you can place up to 3 jobs at a time for them to go and do, and they can either do the dungeon crawl for you to get those rewards, or you can specifically have them farm animal based materials, so fur, leather, that sort of thing, and then they just show up in the chest outside of your house once the contract is completed. And then the same thing happens with the tree farm. There's a series of quests tied to the tree farm that you have to deal with a problem that they have and then like fix it up, and then you can just go there and you can put in orders to get wood shipped to your house.
Yeah, that's the other thing is that you could also kind of rush the orders, but for a lot more money if it's tied into the commissions that you need to get done, which we have even actually talked about what you're actually supposed to be doing to level up your own workshop. And we've been going at this for a while now. That kind of tells you just how much there is to do in this game. So you are part of the Guild of Workshop Owners, and the local chapter posts jobs for you to do, and they could range from, I believe it's D class all the way up to S class. And depending on the level of your workshop is what shows up on the board that you can at least see. And there's 4 different ones, or up to 4 different ones that could be posted. And it could be, I need 1 to 10 of certain items. And as you complete them, you get workshop points, which increases your rank in the guild. And at the end of every season, if you're in the top 3, you get a bunch of bonus stuff. But it also gives you a bunch of relationship points with the people that you fulfill the contracts with. So it's also a possibility to use that to get some social standings with a particular certain someone if you want to get to know them a little bit better. And then during certain missions, the city will actually post additional contracts that you could take on it in addition to the normal ones in order to do something for this main story, like put down DD fast travel spots, which are these motorized rickshaws, actually, or sort of it's a motorized rickshaw, actually. That's actually exactly what it is. A motorized rickshaw that opens up a free fast travel network. It just costs a little bit of time. Or to put up city lights, or to improve the town by, well, this one's given to you directly, but to build a bridge to a little offshoot of an island. That sort of thing. Did I miss anything?
Not in those early quests. I mean, there's more.
Yeah,
that
and also
get as it grows, but
and also every so often a random person will have a side quest that I highly suggest checking out the map every day to see if they show up, to be able to get to know them a little bit better, maybe learn a little bit more about them. I had the local farm girl come by like 2 or 3 times with her chickens that have escaped and help her with those. So my relationship with her improved quite a bit, which in turn improves my relationship with her social network. It makes me, well liked, or I should say more liked around the town.
Yeah. When you were talking about the contracts you cut out for a minute, did you mention that the limitations on how many you can get?
No, I didn't. You could only have one of the normal contracts a day. So you choose wisely. But the city ones, you can pick up one at a time, but you can do multiple ones in a day. So, and you could have one of each type. I did mention that.
Yeah. And then the side contracts don't count towards that, like, official contract limit. So you can get as many of those in a day as there are available.
Yeah, like...
Because it's like those aren't going through the normal guild channels.
I barely rushed through and get as... I got 4 of the 5 DD contracts myself. And completed them, which really boosted up my workshop. So I was able to get second place in spring by a significant margin. Actually start to challenge for first place. And got a huge cash infusion, even though I honestly really didn't need it. That's one thing. After about halfway through spring, cash started to become less and less of an issue. So it made kind of a system that I really liked in the beginning kind of irrelevant, was the changing market prices.
It'll become an issue again.
Okay.
Once you start upgrading your house and property.
Yeah. See, I've gotten the first upgrade to the property, and I don't have all my inventory space, but there's 3 pages of inventory. See, I missed that there was an error there, so I thought there was only 1 page at first.
Yeah, no, I've got a page and a half of inventory.
Yeah, I got a page and I think just under half. And this one, they don't give any explanation. It's just pay to unlock the next line. They don't give any story explanation of why your inventory is locked, or like buying a backpack like Stardew does, which is kind of meh. But because they're so strong on other aspects, I'm willing to overlook it as just a gameplay design thing.
I just like to think I'm getting really buff from all my engineering and farming.
Let's face it,
and wood chopping.
You're
and
down
mining.
in the mines constantly.
I haven't spent as much time down there. Once you get like the level 3 pickaxe and the level 3 regular woodcutting axe and some of the
stuff.
perk points, some of the perk points that go into giving you more resources, you don't have to spend as much time.
Yeah,
so typically what I'll do
more limitations on the oddball items like the silicon chips, the circuits. Actually, not the circuits, but but that sort of individual items instead of resources, raw resources, which you could just buy outright.
Yeah, typically what I'll do is I'll spend do like day on, day off. So one day will be all about resource gathering, and it'll be wood, or it'll be stuff from the mine, or it'll be creature harvesting, like whatever I need. And then the next day I'll focus really heavily on completing contracts. And the next day we'll be harvesting another thing. And, I'll alternate that. And then typically on Sundays I'll spend all day going around just interacting with people. I mean, I interact with people as much as I can anyways, but like intentionally, like I go pick out presents that people like, and I devote all of my energy to, rock, paper, scissors, and doing games, and boxing, that sort of thing.
Yeah, see, I'm a
Because all
little
those
bit
things
more
do
generalist.
take energy to do.
I'll do a contract every day if I can. I will check every day. On weekends, I do the item inspection because that gives the extra items. And that's pretty quick in time. I'll go through and chop a few trees as I run past them, particularly if they're bigger trees. There's 3 different sizes of trees, and each one requires a progressively more powerful axe. But if you use a bigger axe on a smaller tree, it could chop it in one chop or a couple chops. And I'm starting to get to the point where I don't need to chop down the trunk, which from what I've read, also it speeds up how quickly a tree regrows. But because I'm running 6 forges, I do go through a lot of wood, as you may imagine. And I'm keeping those going all the time, so I have to get some wood every day. I haven't needed to go mining that much recently because I spent like a week every day after doing a contract just going down in the mine and spending at least half my stamina bar just down in the mine, which that's pretty standard for a game to have an endurance bar to limit you in some degree. What's interesting is we didn't really talk about it is that the game actually has a sliding time scale. You're able to adjust just how long days take. And at the standard speed, at 100%, it actually feels pretty rushed, doesn't it?
Yeah, I slowed it down immediately. The slowest it could go is 50% speed.
Yeah, and I'm just...
and that feels right to me.
Yeah, that's why I've been running as well. And whenever we say, okay, we're only through one season, I have 20 hours in the game. Or I have like 21, 22 hours.
Yeah, I've got closer to 30.
Yeah, so it's not...
27, 28.
So it may sound like we haven't done a lot. We have. Oh, we have.
Yeah, and I mean, there have been a couple of days where I have gone to bed before 9 o'clock. But typically, I mean, your character wakes up at 6, and I spend all day doing stuff. I usually go to the restaurant and eat to get some stamina recovery really cheaply. And then depending on what I'm trying to do during the day, I have a bunch of like stamina recovery items and things like that I can use to get stamina back. Sitting and resting gives you stamina back. Like if you just sit in a chair.
Well, also if you have your house equipped, certain items give you certain stats, and I have a fair number of endurance items, so that gives me quite a bit as well.
I've got the maximum stamina bar that I can have at this point. Like, I'm maxed out on it in character leveling, and then the only thing I can do is, as your house goes up in size, you can increase the amount of bonuses that you can get for those things. But my current house is maxed out on the bonus that I can have for stamina. So I can't, until I upgrade my house again, I can't get any more stamina.
Yeah, that is something that I don't like, is that the game does pick some odd titles for things like stamina and endurance, and I always get the two confused. So one is the number of items that you could, or the number of actions you could take a day. Chopping down trees, mining, but also combat also takes that resource. Then the other is your active item, or your active action. So if you dodge roll, that takes a certain amount. If you sprint, that depletes it. That sort of thing. And I always get backwards which is which.
Yeah, same. But, I mean, I just think of it, in general as stamina. But I'm glad you pointed out the difference, because anyone who hasn't played wouldn't recognize, or wouldn't know that there's two different ones.
Yeah, and the game does obfuscate some things like that. Like, it doesn't really talk about why the market value shifts so wildly. So, items I've seen go from 70% posted value to 130%. And I'm not sure if that's the maximum or not. No, actually, I've seen it 136%, sorry. But it doesn't really get into the why behind it. So, why does the market fluctuate so wildly? I don't know. It just does. It's how it is. It is the way.
Because reasons.
Mm-hmm. So that is something that I would like to see explained a little bit better. Maybe have it where the player's actions taken into account as the other workshops, because that is one thing that I like, is that the other workshops are active. As I've been putting down my DD stops, I see the other DD stops getting filled in by the other workshops. Higgins, that little asshole, got the 5th contract as I was going to grab it. Oh, I fucking hate Higgins.
Yeah. But I do like that they do that.
Yeah.
You know, it makes it feel like you're living in a world that is living, that's doing its own thing, and you're just a part of it. So, I like that system overall. Yeah. Overall, good game. Would recommend.
Yeah. Definitely worth checking out, especially if you have Game Pass. And it easily has enough content to justify its price tag. It's something that I thought it wouldn't be as long as it is. And they're still talking about adding more to it later on. So, yeah, I mean, easily worth a pickup. Especially if you like Stardew Valley, but you didn't like it focused so much on your farm and not the community itself. This is a very community-focused game. And it's focused on getting to know your neighbors and eventually learning more about their stories, what their lives is like, and potentially more about this odd universe where we blew ourselves up, and this fight between the church and technology. It's a very interesting game.
It is indeed. So a heartfelt recommend from both of us. Yay! It was a good one to wrap 2019 on.
Yep.
So, for the first game of the new year, the new decade, the first Game Club game.
The current year.
For the first game of the current year, we are going to be playing Where the Water Tastes Like Wine. This is another game that we're playing via Game Pass. Is it available on Steam?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I just typed Steam into the Steam search bar. So, good job,
I'm
man.
pretty sure that there's a Steam game on Steam. Steampunk, that's one.
Yeah. There's probably more than one. But yeah, Where the Water Tastes Like Wine is $20 on Steam currently. And we are going to find out if it is worth $20 or not. I have been very interested in this game since it released. And
I'm pretty sure it was also on the Twitch Game Pass as well, or the Twitch Pass, or Twitch Prime. Pretty sure it was at one point. Yeah, it was. It was for July of 2018. It was that 1 month that they threw out a lot of games.
Yeah, I don't know if I have it on there or not, because there was a couple where I missed months and missed games, so...
Yeah, that's why I've been reminding you whenever I see there's new ones now. It was in July where they had they gave away 18 games for the month of July. And it was a game every few days. To really encourage you to come back. So they had things... like Broken Age, Tyranny, Tacoma, Observer, and I'm pretty sure Where the Water Tastes Like Wine is on this list. Yeah, it was one of the March games.
Cool. So you, dear listener, might have it through that means if you don't have Game Pass. But yeah, Where the Water Tastes Like Wine. Looking forward to that.
We'll find out where that is.
Indeed. Probably not here. If it tastes like anything here, it's going to be moonshine.
Maybe it's like downstream from Jeebus.
Jeebus?
I'm just going to assume that you said something that was trying to be funny, but not, because I heard you talking, but couldn't make out what you said.
Nah, I just said Jeebus.
Oh, so I was right.
So... very quickly, let's discuss a couple things in Community Corner. As always, as my life changes and shifts and adjusts because of having a family and stuff, my schedule has hardcore changed. So going forward, at least for the foreseeable future, I'm not going to be able to do community game night. I mean, anyone who wants to know the details, I don't mind to talk about and share them. but it's just a bunch of like, scheduling stuff and things that happen as a child grows older and people get new jobs. So it basically, I just don't have as much free time as I did in the evenings. So for the foreseeable future, community game night is currently not going to be a thing that we're going to be doing. Obviously, if you guys want to hang out, being anybody in the community, feel free to do so. You don't need my permission. But the idea of having like a specific, like, we're going to come together at this time every week currently is not going to be something that we're doing. So
yeah, Hitman got away.
Apologies.
Finally, huh?
Hitman did get away. So just wanted to let everybody know that. Did we have any tweets, emails?
Not that I saw.
Okay.
I'll go double check because actually I didn't check earlier. I checked yesterday and I didn't see anything. At least I don't think I saw anything. But we'll go ahead and double check just to be safe because you never know, right?
You never know.
Let's see. Outside of just junk from Podbeam? Nope. The moths are still breeding in there quite nicely, actually.
Alrighty then. Well, based on what time it is, I think it's time for me to say, instead of doobly-doo, to say, hey, Rage, hit him with them socials.
Well, I've been Caffeine Rage. You can find me over on YouTube, Gaming with Caffeine Rage. Well, the channel's been a little bit dead for a while, but we'll work on that, maybe. Or you can find me on Steam, Caffeine Rage there as well. Or you can find me occasionally tweeting out on the Twitters. Gaming with CR there. And you've been?
Gaming Psychologist. You can find me over on the YouTubes by searching for Gaming Psychologist. You can find me on Twitter at JMA4707. And you can send me a friend request on Steam at JArthur4707.
And if you wish to let them know exactly what episode of the podcast you're coming from, the password for this week is Hacky Sack. Hacky Sack.
Nice.
One of the kind of the funny sounding words that I had on my list for ages. Nothing really jumped out for Portia or Portia. So, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, once again, if you wish to fill up and scare the ever-living hell out of our moths in the mailbag, you'd send us an email, vglpodcast@gmail.com, with your letters, voicemails, game-related topics, or just tweet them to us over on VGL Podcast. And that is, of course, on the Twitter. Our lovely, lovely patrons have made this madness possible. You can find out more at patreon.com/VGL Podcast. And our patrons is what makes our Podbean tick. VGLpodcast.podbean.com, which hosts the RSS feed, show notes, links to all our stuff online, or you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, or your podcatcher of choice. Our intro and outro music is On the Ground by Kevin McLeod. You can find his work over at Computech.com. And
as always, as his lovely music starts to roll across my voice, bye-bye now.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.